Hi, I'm Delaney. I'm going to be presenting on the East India Hindu American culture and a little bit of history about this culture. The Indian American community is not a single unified culture. India is about a third of the size of the United States, so many of the regions have their own cultural groups that are subdivided in that country. And that's the same thing with religion too. They don't all have the exact same religion, but Hinduism is the most popular one. 80.5% of the population is Hindu. A majority of the Hindus in India belong to the Vaishnavite and Shaivite denominations. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world. It dates back to 1500 BC. There are three Hindu deities that form the Hindu trinity, which are the Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. There are three main waves of immigration from the East India Hindu community to the United States. The first wave was right after the Congressional Act, which was in 1965. This act was a practice of setting limits on the immigrations that could come into the United States each year. So after that act was passed, the Immigration and Nationality Act, the first wave came in, and then the second wave came in, which was the families of the first wave. So this began around 1980, and there are about 30,000 East Indian people coming in each year. And the third wave was Y2K, and this was in the mid to late 1990s, and the majority of these people were the young culture. They were unmarried, and they were computer professionals recruited by the American companies to address the Y2K crisis. And next, the verbal communication. So we have Awadhi, which is from north and north central Uttar Pradesh and in Fiji. Bagheli from north central Madhya Pradesh and central Uttar Pradesh, and Chhattisgarhi from southeast Madhya Pradesh and northern central Chhattisgarhi. The main language, however, for the East Hindu American culture is English, but they speak at a very fast pace since that's how they speak their native languages in India. In many parts of India, during formal occasions, it's common for people to greet each other with the traditional Hindu greeting, which is Namaste. And Namaste means I greet the divine within you. And they do this with a head nod or a bow, depending on the status of the person that they're talking to. A common gesture when greeting someone is pressing the palms together with the fingertips facing upward like a prayer position like this. And this is also accompanied with a slight bow, so they'll be like... and then verbal greetings vary between regions, and they differ depending on the people's relationships. An example of a common greeting is Kim Chow, which means how are you? It's generally appropriate for men and women to shake hands, but it depends on the religious practices that they believe in, because some religions and subsets don't believe in shaking hands with the opposite gender, but generally it's okay. But if you are shaking hands with opposite gender, it's advisable to have the woman stick her hand out first to shake hands, and you should avoid greeting someone with a hug or a kiss unless you know them really well. Indians expect people to greet the eldest person in the room first because that shows a sign of respect, and some Indians may reach down and touch the ground or the feet of the elders to show respect. It's advisable to address people by their title, so Mr., Mrs., Miss, and the last name, until they can tell you that you can call them by their first name. And it's common to add gender-neutral suffixes onto the first name to show respect. So an example would be like, I don't know how to say it, I think it's like G, like dash JI, and you can add that to the end of their first name. Some indirect communication, so they like to be polite and indirect, so they try to speak to those they're not close with. They will talk politely to them to avoid conflict, because they very much dislike conflict in that culture. Refusals, so it's considered harsh to do a direct refusal, like telling someone no, because in this community they like to offer chai tea, and it's very disrespectful if you turn that down. But not just tea, like in general, it's considered rude to turn things down from this culture. They can take it as hostile or aggressive, and Indians tend to give evasive refusals, and they can use phrases such as maybe or I'll do my best, and like instead of saying no, because they don't want to sound rude. And their version of yes has various connotations. For example, they can say yes to indicate that they're listening to the speaker, while indicating disagreement or refusal through their body language. Silence. Sometimes people remain silent rather than to say no, because again, they don't want to sound rude. So it's just important to pay attention to what they're saying and to pay attention to their body language, because they might be trying to nicely tell you one thing without being so direct about it. Hierarchy. The social hierarchy of Indian society influences communication patterns in many scenarios. Respect and deference to authority figures in and outside of the home are prevalent, and it's just important to know like the senior's opinion and do not disagree with the elders. So important dues of communication in this culture. Good conversation starters include the region that they're from and their profession, or like how they're doing, or their family, things like that. And it's important to treat Indian elders with respect, so address them with their first name. Address them first with their name, and talk to them about their opinion. And whenever talking to an elder, the elder should always be higher than you, like sitting higher. So if they're sitting in a chair, you should sit on the floor so they are above you. And do not speak directly to them. It's important to be patient when making decisions or negotiating with them. They like to take their time when making decisions, so it's important for them to not feel rushed. And try to dress conservatively. They're a very conservative culture, and they don't like PDA or anything like that. So just make sure you're showing respect like within yourself to when you're speaking to this culture. And they enjoy lighthearted sense of humor. They like to tease each other and have friendly banter. Over 93% of Indians are fluent in English, and it's common for them to have extensive and impressive vocabulary. So if you communicate in a way that doesn't acknowledge this, they might take it as patronizing. And some don'ts of communicating with this culture: avoid crude humor or sparing, because they take offense to this easily. And do not directly criticize India as a country, because it becomes unwelcome and they can interpret it as an insult. And you should avoid negative comments or criticisms about their appearance, ability, or attributes, because they take things to heart very easily, and they can take it as you're being insensitive. Some nonverbal forms of communication: namaste, so you place both hands together with a slight bow. You can shake hands. They don't show PDA. No eye contact with arms across the chest shows respect to the elders. And whenever you are touching someone, passing money, or picking up items, you should use your right hand because the left hand is considered unclean. Physical contact, they don't like to touch people, so if it can be avoided, try to do so, but they can touch someone's arm or hand when speaking to them, as long as it's the same gender, because contact between genders is kept to a minimal throughout India, but touching an opposite gender is less okay. They don't like to hug or kiss or hold hands or anything like the American culture, so it's important to just be aware of that. And it's also very important not to touch their head because the head is considered very sensitive in their culture. Personal space, Indians like personal space, and they like to keep about an arm's length distance between one another during interactions, and they might stand further away from someone that's the opposite gender, so keep that in mind. Eye contact, Indians prefer to keep eye contact minimal to avert their eyes from the opposite gender instead of sustaining eye contact like we do in our culture. Some women avoid eye contact altogether, and it's not like showing disrespect as we might take it. That's just in their culture, that's how they show respect. Indirect eye contact is appropriate as long as you divert your gaze every so often. Don't just hold it the whole entire conversation. In India, whistling and winking is considered very sexual, so don't do that, because we might do it jokingly in the American culture, but they take offense to it very easily. And head tilting, people may tilt their head to the side or shake it to indicate agreement or understanding, and it's similar to what we would do as I don't know or shrugging our shoulders in our culture. Nodding in India, they nod to acknowledge what is said out of politeness, but it doesn't always mean that they understand or agree. It just kind of shows that they're listening. Pointing and beckoning, pointing with the index finger towards someone is considered accusatory, and it's more polite to refer to someone as a whole with your palm facing down. Body language, standing with your hands on your hips suggests that you're angry and ready to argue. So we do it if we're just kind of like laid back or chilling, but they do it differently. They do that if they're like in a bad mood and ready to argue. Ears, holding or pulling one's ears is a gesture that indicates sincerity or repentance. The head is the holiest part of the body, so touching it is offensive. And the feet are thought to be the dirtiest part of the body, so displaying the soles of one's feet or touching someone's feet is considered rude. Unless you're meeting with an elder, then it's considered okay to bow at their feet because it shows respect. And social organization, so they're very hospitable, and they may not be on time, but that's normal. It's normal for them to arrive 15 to 30 minutes late to things, and it's important to remove your shoes before entering someone's home because that shows respect. And like I said earlier, it's common to be offered chai tea when visiting someone's home or like a little shop, and you should always accept this gift because they take offense to it if you do not. And small token gifts to the host are appreciated, but they are not required. But you don't have to, but you should give them a little gift just to show like you respect them and you thank them for allowing you into their home. And if you're in someone's home, you should always ask permission to leave before you just get up and go, because that can be considered rude as well. And the East India Hindu Americans, they are, the first wave is getting older in the American culture, so the ones that first immigrated here are like reaching the age where they're starting to pass away, so we were able to see them reach adulthood, and it's interesting just to see how they can bring their culture over and share it with us. So yep, thank you.